so great to have you back with us for today's video, in which we'll be talking about something we know is one of your favorite topics: how to invest, and how to do it in a way that will give you great results well into the future. If somebody asked you to name a great investment, what would be the first thing you would think of? Would you pick a stock, a commodity, or perhaps crypto? Today we're looking at something that has a track record of being a lot more secure in the long term, and with the potential for big profits. If you're thinking property, you'd be closer, but still a bit short of the mark, because today we're not looking at buildings themselves, but what they're built on: land. It's something a lot of investors never take the time to look into, but that's what we're looking into today, with the 10 reasons land is the best time-proof investment. Number 1. It gains value better than real estate. Real estate is far from a bad investment, and it's great to have some in your portfolio, but we have to add that land has a few big pluses that real estate can't match, and the first one is that over time, the value increases more. Let's look at a few numbers. Say back in 2010 you bought an apartment in the USA. You started renting it out and putting the rent money into the bank. The amount you've made since then would depend a lot on variables, especially factoring in your maintenance costs, tax, and renovations. But what if you had used the money to buy land and waited 10 years to sell it? Looking at the change in land prices over the same period, you could have expected an increase in value somewhere between 80% to even over 150%, especially if you invested in land in Nevada, the US state with the highest increases in land prices. And that's just the amount the land increased by. You don't even have to rent it. Over just 10 years, land is already starting to beat out real estate. But what if you do the same project over a longer period, say 40 years? Well, land's going to do even better. The reason is simple. Over time, buildings degrade. They get into worse condition. They need more maintenance until tearing them down and building something new becomes the best option. But land just keeps on getting more valuable. That makes it a great long-term investment, and about as time-proof as you can get. Number 2. Demand is going up and supply is staying still. At this point, maybe you're starting to ask, why does the price of land go up in the first place? You don't have to be an economics genius to figure this one out, do you? You just need to know a few basics, like how much of something there is available, supply, and how many people want it, demand. And in the case of land, it's easy to see how these play out. The world's population is steadily going up by a little over 1% a year, and it's probably going to keep on rising until around the year 2100. All the extra people in the world are going to need space to live, work, and recreate. That's going to use up more land, and demand for it is going to stay on the upswing for quite some time to come. And in terms of supply, well, you can always build more stories onto a building, but you can't build more land. In other words, the supply of land is staying more or less the same. Putting it all together, rising demand and limited supply, it only means one thing: rising prices. Number 3. It's easier to predict than other asset classes. So what makes land such a great long-term bet? Well, when it comes to investing, nothing is certain, but let's just say that land is about as certain as you can get. Let's compare it to stocks. Now that technology is changing and becoming obsolete faster and faster, it's harder than ever to say what's going to be making big waves in a few years' time. If you spotted Amazon 20 years ago, sure, now you would be rolling in money, and getting in on Amazon 20 years ago would have been impressive enough. But figuring out now what's going to be the next Amazon, if anything, that looks even more difficult. But if there's one thing we can be sure isn't going to become obsolete, that is land. Any stock comes with a big risk, and land offers risks that are about as low as any investment, but still come with great opportunities for profit. Number 4. It's as low maintenance as you can get. So we've just talked about how much land goes up in value, and the beauty of it is, if you own empty land, you don't have to maintain it, change it, or do anything to it. Let's compare it with owning an apartment or house. If you own an apartment and take rent from tenants, there'll be all kinds of things you have to take care of, like maintenance. Anytime something breaks, that's your call. What if you get rats or bugs, or it's damp or a leak in the roof? Yep, that's one more time, effort, money, and sweat that you'll be putting into fixing it. And you'll also have to hope that your tenants pay on time and don't trash the place while they're there. But when it comes to vacant land with no buildings on it, or as it's known in the business world, raw land, you don't need to do anything. You can just sit back, let the market do its work, and watch the value of your land go up, and at some point in time, cash in and sell it, either to someone who wants to develop it or to someone who knows its value is going to keep rising. Number 5. Pick the right area and the profits could be huge. Just in case this is starting to sound too good to be true, we hear you. And yes, things can go wrong when you're investing with land. And yes, you do need to do your homework. First, you need to look into things like, what can the land be used for? Are there limitations or zoning restrictions on it, which are going to stop it from going up in value? Like an area where no construction is allowed? Or is it on a mountainside that's impossible to build anything on, or in a flood zone? The good news is you can find answers to all of these questions pretty simply. In most countries, you can contact your local planning and zoning department